Welcome to the Movies to Watch Before You Die podcast. My name is Gab, and I'm here with my cousin and co-host,
Dylan.
And today we are discussing a movie that, if you are a regular listener of this podcast, I have brought up and teased so many times. I feel like we are finally taking one off the list that is long overdue. But before we get to that, Dylan, why are the people listening to us?
Well, you're listening to us because, first of all, we have built up 30 plus episodes of prestige and podcast experience by this point, but also because we both have film school experience in one way or another. Me as a former video editor, you as a former actress. And that's why I think we have the bona fides to back up our talk.
I would agree with you. And I have to say that is the second or third time you've snuck bona fides into this podcast. So good for you. It really is. Well done. Yeah. So we have a little bit of experience and credentials to be talking on the subject, but more importantly, we are movie lovers, just like hopefully you are, listener. So today we are going to be talking about a classic rom-com. Rom-com?
Definitely rom-com.
It's a little light on the com. Little heavy on the rom. Little light on the com.
Would you call it instead a chick flick?
Perhaps. I think I would call it a chick flick, although that doesn't feel like an actual genre.
No, and it is somewhat of a diminishing term to be used, I feel like, inherently.
Yeah. But either way, it's a Nora Ephron movie, which tells you all you need to know. I'm at 97?
No, this is 93.
93, not at all 97. The 1993 classic starring Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan called Sleepless in Seattle.
I just want to take a second. You did not have to look down just there to check if it was Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan, right?
No, Corey texted me and it came through on my watch.
Okay.
Just so everybody knows, he says, "No rush. I love you. Have fun." Thanks, Corey. So we don't have to rush.
I saw Gab look just off screen and I was like, she's not checking like IMDb to know who's in this movie, right?
No. My phone wasn't on Do Not Disturb, so the text came through. Dylan, I think, and again, this is very subjective, but I'm interested to know your take. I think this may be the most famous, we'll call it like rom-com chick flick movie of all time.
That I can't agree with.
What would you say is more famous than Sleepless in Seattle?
My mind went straight to The Notebook.
Okay, but I would argue that The Notebook is a pure romance film. It is not in the same genre as a Sleepless in Seattle.
True. Well,
I think that this genre of movie, and in particular Nora Ephron's sort of like the queen of this genre, I don't really think it exists anymore, because nowadays a rom-com has far more comedy and a romance has far more drama. And this movie is just kind of a very simple telling of a love story, very similar to your You've Got Mail, your When Harry Met Sally, all those Nora Ephron classics.
I would say it still exists, but it's not. This is a movie that was, I think I have to check real quick, but I'm pretty sure, it was a major box office success. And with the way that the movie theater exists now, you wouldn't see this. You would see this on a streamer. Mm-hmm. This would be a movie that used to make a couple $100 million and was the talk of the year and maybe a top 10 movie of the year. And now it's instead something that, might be on Paramount Plus and nobody knows it's there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's true. It's true. It's a very specific audience, I would say. Well, Dylan, before we get any further, why don't you tell the people your plot summary for Sleepless in Seattle?
What's this all been about? What am I working toward?
You think you know everything about me, don't you?
I dive at your bottom. I bloody well ought to.
When I think of Sleepless in Seattle, it's honestly hard to separate from the movie that would come after, but we watched first, You've Got Mail. I do think there's some similarities, but
I didn't ask you what you thought it was similar to. I asked you to define the plot.
I was getting to that.
Jesus Christ.
Oh my, we're gonna have to pause this. We'll be back after a short break. No, but what I would say is this is about a man and his son, and they have just lost their wife/mother. And was it the terminology there of saying their wife/mother?
It could have been better, but all right.
I could have done a better job of that. Tom Hanks' character has just lost his wife, who is also the mother of his son. Nope, still not good, but whatever. Meg Ryan overhears on the radio him talking to the therapist. And as he tells this story of his wife and refers to it in the way that Meg Ryan's family has just referred to love, it was like magic. And you really hear that a lot in this movie, that love is described as like magic. And she immediately idolizes and feels a kindred connection, despite the fact that he's not hearing it on her side. So it's then she wants to, find a way to get to this man who so clearly vibes with her, I guess. I'm trying to say it in without me describing the entire plot.
Okay, well, I think a more accurate way to describe the plot, and it's mind-blowing that you went to film school, would be a woman overhears a man talk about the loss of his wife on the radio, and her opinion about what love should feel like is changed forever.
Pretty much what I said, but okay.
Yeah. Why don't you tell me what IMDb says?
Yes, let's get to the even better than both of us IMDb plot summary. A recently widowed man's son calls a radio talk show in an attempt to find his father a partner.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's even better. Like Meg Ryan doesn't really have to even be in there for the brief plot overview.
True. Do you want to hear the tagline?
Yeah. Sure. Oh, only one?
Only one.
Okay. What is it?
What if someone you never met, someone you never saw, someone you never knew was the only someone for you?
I love that. Also, I just want to say, have you watched Love is Blind yet?
I still haven't, and I probably won't.
Oh, I'm telling you, you guys it's really, really good.
I'm in no rush to get to it. But can I also tell you another tagline and tell you, let me see if it sounds similar to you.
Okay.
Someone you pass on the street may already be the love of your life.
Yeah, I get it. You've got mail. I know.
No, there's something very lazy here. It feels like a couple years later, I'm imagining an executive like smoking a cigar, being like, I don't know, copy it, change it up a little bit. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
right.
Come on, I need more money. Like that.
You can copy my homework, but just change it a little bit.
That is literally like, you've got mail now. I'm like, oh, they sort of just did this over. Like, it's the same people.
Yeah. And it works.
The characters are different, but the same actors.
Yeah. Same actors, very different story, very different feel, right? Like very different feeling between the two movies. Yeah. But it works. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. So what I'd like to do is just give a brief, more in-depth plot overview, if that's okay with you.
Absolutely.
I do believe if you haven't seen this movie, it's one that you obviously I believe it's one that you should watch. I won't ask Dylan to weigh in yet, but I think if you haven't seen it, it's high time you've seen it. Essentially, Tom Hanks's character, Sam, has lost his wife, the love of his life. She died. He has a son named Jonah, who's about 7. And he and Jonah are on their own. They live in Chicago, and Tom Hanks is very depressed. He decides to move Jonah to Seattle. So they move to Seattle to start again. They get a really cool houseboat. How cool is the houseboat?
It's not a houseboat. It's just a house on the water.
Oh, it's not a houseboat?
No.
My whole life, I thought it was a houseboat.
He could easily have a boat.
Wow. All right. Well, never mind. Take the movie off the list. I was always wondering, like, how come it's not rocking? Like, how come they never sail it? They do have a boat.
Yeah.
That's so interesting.
Did those questions make you think perhaps it's not a houseboat?
Well, you're watching me put this together in real time.
Okay.
So it's not a houseboat, but they have a house on the water. It's very nice. And Jonah recognizes that his father is very sad. So one night he turns on the radio and he hears a radio therapist, which was very popular at the time. He calls in and he says, I need to find my dad a new wife. And long story short, the therapist convinces Jonah to give the phone to Tom Hanks. Tom Hanks begrudgingly speaks to her, and broadcast all over the nation is this man describing how much he loved his wife. And the hearts of women everywhere are just melted. Mail starts coming in for him from all over the country. Jonah's like, look, Dad, you can have any wife you want. And he's like, none of these women live in Seattle. This is ridiculous. Stop doing this, whatever. As the story is airing live on the radio, Meg Ryan is driving separately from her new fiance on Christmas Eve to his family to celebrate. And she's kind of grappling right now with love because she's engaged to this man. He's very practical. He seems good for her on paper. They get along very well. But there just doesn't seem to be a spark, and she's kind of ignoring it. She's kind of rationalizing to herself that they're good for one another. She loves him. He's great. He's a great husband. He makes great money, but you can kind of tell that she's not in love with him per se. And as she listens to Tom Hanks on the radio describing his love for his late wife, she realizes that she's really not feeling that love for her fiance, and she inherently falls in love with Tom Hanks, or the idea of Tom Hanks. And so the rest of the movie, she is grappling with, am I in love with this person on the radio? Am I just getting cold feet for my own wedding? Is love actually magic? Should I go to Seattle and try to meet him? This is crazy. I shouldn't. And ultimately, it is really a movie that asks the question, is love something that you can, damn it, what's the phrase I'm looking for? Is love practical? Is it magical? Is it one of those things that you don't know it until you feel it? And is it possible to, can you help me, please? You don't see me struggling?
I don't know what you're going for here, to be honest with you.
Well, I had it before, a couple nights ago, and I lost it. I don't remember what I was planning on saying.
I feel like it's trying to say that love isn't necessarily logical. It just happens. It's a feeling. Can it just spark?
Yes. Yeah.
Very much her and what's the character's name? Walter, played by Bill Pullman. I guess she does not feel a spark. But I will say, by the end of this movie, I did feel badly for Bill Pullman. But we're not there yet to talk about how we feel about things. But it is really just a matter of, Meg Ryan's character then decides that she is going to look for and find this man. She has a private detective, find out what he looks like so that she knows he's not an uggo.
Right. She also is a writer for the Baltimore Sun. And so she positions this as, I'm going to do an article on this story that's taking over the nation about Tom Hanks, who is penned as Sleepless in Seattle on the radio. So that's why she goes to Seattle. Like it all kind of makes sense. She's doing this for work, right? She's writing an article.
Yes. And I will say there is one key point in the movie where they have the meeting before the meeting where, for whatever reason, Sam is dropping off his current girlfriend that they have just started dating, Victoria, I believe it was.
Mm-hmm.
And he's bringing her to the airport. And at the very same time, which I don't know if that's just a thing that maybe back in the day you could bring somebody all the way to the gate.
Oh, yeah. Pre 9/11, 100%.
Yeah, the only time I've ever done that since is when I was picking up like my niece and nephew because they were unaccompanied minors. And I was like, wow, this is so weird.
Yeah.
But Annie is getting off the plane as Victoria is getting on the next plane. And like, they just have that moment where they just, I want to call it love at first sight, where they just sort of like lock eyes. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It's sort of like in Game Night, they have that moment where they just fixated on their faces for a moment.
Yeah.
After that, I feel like we just get to have Annie in what can easily be recut. And I did manage to find recut as a horror trailer where she is just watching Sam and Jonah, have a catch with each other. Like she is just scoping him out. Like, have you ever seen that gif of the guy who's standing behind the tree doing his hand, like he's rubbing his hands together? Yeah. That's kind of Annie during this portion of the movie. She's just watching Sam to be like, all right, what's going on here? All the meanwhile, she has had a letter communication going on with Jonah, I guess, not actually Sam, about the fact that if Sam wants to meet her on Valentine's Day on the observation deck of the Empire State Building.
Yeah.
Which coincides very well with the fact that she is meeting her fiance for that weekend in New York City. So
yeah, Jonah reads Annie's letter, is like, she's the one, I love her. Sam is like, I don't care, she doesn't live here, this is ridiculous. And then Jonah agrees for them to meet her at the top of the Empire State Building on Valentine's Day. But of course, Sam is not interested. So what does Jonah do? He gets on a plane by himself, forcing Sam to follow him, goes all the way to the top of the Empire State Building, and they almost miss one another. A spoiler. And then at the end, of course, they find one another. They leave together, holding hands, and that's that. And I think what I love about this movie, I mean, I guess, is it opinion time?
I think we're heading towards opinion time. Should we just play the music?
Play the music.
In this critic's opinion,
that's just like your opinion, man.
Well, I have a right to my opinion, and my opinion is you have no right to your opinion.
What I love about this movie is that it is truly, and Corey said this really well after we watched it, it is really just a movie. It is about this one story. We don't get the 10 years later. We don't necessarily find out what happens after they leave the Empire State Building. It's just Tom Hanks loses his wife. His son wants him to find somebody else. This whole plot unfolds. And then at the end, he and Annie get together and they leave holding hands and they get dinner. And maybe it goes well, maybe it doesn't. But at the end of the day, they felt something and they gave it its fair shot. And I just love that. Like, it doesn't have to be, we don't need a sequel. I don't need to know how it ends. It's just beautiful.
Although I do want to see Sleepless in Seattle 2 Electric Boogaloo. Now, Gab, let me ask you something.
Wait, what?
That was just a fake sequel I made up of Sleepless in Seattle.
But what was the Boogaloo part?
Electric Boogaloo? You never heard that before? It's like
No.
it's a random sequel name that's thrown around all the time. It was an actual movie. But
Okay.
let me ask you a quick opinion question. Do you think Jonah is kind of a dick?
It's really funny because that was the main conversation at my house was
right?
Tom Hanks is not reprimanding this child. This kid
Yes.
runs amok. He's a dick to Victoria. What is wrong with him? And I mean, listen, here's the thing. Ultimately, I think that none of us know what it's like to parent. And especially none of us know what it's like to parent a little kid who just lost his mother. So yeah, the kid's kind of a prick. I'm sure Giselle would have some kind of insight into why he's acting out. I don't know. I mean, Tom Hanks probably doesn't want to be too hard on him. He's depressed, right? So it's hard to really do anything when you're depressed. His mom just died. I don't know. Like,
Yeah, we don't just about anything. I'm just glad you agreed with me because
oh yeah,
Sam, Tom Hanks is like Charm City in this movie. You know what I mean?
Ugh,
like,
yeah.
In You've Got Mail, he had to be Charm against the character he was playing, which is like a terrible character. You know what I mean? In this movie,
Yeah.
he is just like the purest of pure. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's Annie who is a little bit, of the stranger danger vibes she's given off.
Yeah.
And let me ask you another question, since you did talk about, sequelizing. Have you ever seen the movie The Graduate?
Yes, I love The Graduate.
Obviously, you're aware of how The Graduate ends, where he, takes her away from the wedding and they run off on the bus, and it lingers for a moment so that we can see them get to that point of, you get past that point of elation to was this a good idea?
Yep. I think that is honestly the best ending of any film of all time. I will die on that hill.
Part of me wishes that we had that as the end here, because part of me wishes we just saw them going down that elevator, and as they're riding down the elevator, which, have you been to the Empire State Building?
Actually, for the first time, Corey took me for my birthday last year because I had never been and I always wanted to go because I wanted my little Sleepless in Seattle moment. So he took me.
It's a long way up to the top.
It's a long way up to the top. Well, especially now, it's so gimmicky. Have you been?
Yeah.
It's so gimmicky. You got to go through like a museum. They take your picture. And then at the end, they're like, don't you want to buy this picture?
Yeah. And like 7 different sets of staircases
yeah.
that you're like wrapping around in a maze-like thing in case there's the hugest line you've ever been on.
Did you know also that now you can go not just from the observation deck, you can get into another elevator and go all the way up to the little needle.
Yes, the time I was there, it was too windy for that, but yes.
Oh my God, I'm so glad I didn't know that before because we're both afraid of heights. We stepped out of the elevator and we were like,
Yeah, thank God it's like fully fenced in because it's a bit freaky.
It's so scary.
I wanted that moment of them going down in the elevator, taking that long ride down. And like maybe the movie could have ended on like the ding of the elevator hitting the ground floor, but just to see them have like these big smiles on their faces and Jonah having this big smile on his face, and for all of them to kind of think like, "This is a good idea. What did we do here?" Because there is an extent to which it's like everyone is acting on that impulse of the moment. You know what I mean? Because
Yes.
there is very much Bill Pullman Walter, who is like, I remember I almost had a problem. You've Got Mail with the fact that they don't make either of their partners out to be like bad people. They do a great job with Meg Ryan and Greg Kinnear in that movie of, they both agree with each other, like, yeah, you know what? Maybe this hasn't been working and it hasn't been working for a while. And there's more build up to that in the movie. Whereas I did feel really bad for Bill Pullman because it feels like the entire movie, he is wonderful to her while she is, you know, I don't want to call it, I guess I'm going to call it an emotional affair with a person that she literally doesn't even know. And poor Walter, they're just at dinner and she's just like, you know what? I've been really into this guy on the radio. I think I'm going to go look for him. And he sort of is just like, yeah, okay. He's like, I just want you to be happy, which is like very nice of Walter, but you're like, oh, poor Walter.
Yeah, but I also think you have to remember, like, nobody should be married to somebody who doesn't absolutely worship the ground that they walk on. Like, if you are married to somebody who is even thinking about another person, like, that relationship is right. Nobody deserves that.
Well, that's why I feel bad. And I wish Walter had a moment like, we need to do one or two things with Walter. Walter either needs a moment of like, and I don't know how we do it without making Annie seem like a dick, where Walter gets to say, you know what? I will find somebody who does deserve me. Because he really doesn't hit her with a line like that. Like she says it and he sort of placates her. And it's so washed over. And part of me is like, the other option is to just, the more cliche thing would be to have there be an incident with Walter. Have Walter, hook up with another random woman in New York City and she walks in on them. And I know that's cliche, but it's cliche for a reason because it makes sense for why we can be like, oh, it's Walter.
Yeah.
The same thing with, Annie and Walter do that breakup. And at the same time, Tom Hanks just never says anything to Victoria. Like Victoria, as far as she knows, he's going to come back to Seattle and like be excited to see her.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, but I think so. I want to start by commenting on your point about The Graduate. And I love that movie so much. And it's funny. I definitely thought about that a lot last year. Like all of these decisions that I was making and the way that I was changing my life, I was always afraid that I was going to have that graduate moment where I was going to be like, okay, now I'm here. Fuck. You know what I mean? Like, what have I done? Which thankfully did not happen. But I do love that moment. But I think that point exists in that movie because that movie is very, I don't want to say realistic, but I want to say
it's
that
going for something very different.
It's going for something different. Exactly.
Yes.
Like this is meant to be a romance. It is. And that's what I love about it. It's not meant to be really deeply analyzed. It's not meant to like show you what would really happen. It's just such a wild story and it's just sweet. And to be honest with you, I'm very emotional. I cry at these things all the time. Really, in this movie, the only time I get emotional is when Tom Hanks talks about his wife. Because I just think it's beautiful. Also, I don't even think that the love story between he and Annie is really all that great because we don't know what happens.
Yeah. There's a moment that like nearly brought me to tears where Tom Hanks, it's funny that we're just calling him Tom Hanks. We're not referring to him as character. Yeah. Where Sam is on the couch and he pictures his wife. And like he has that moment of, the wife says, well, what is it that I would say? And, you can hear him like, it's not like she's a force ghost where she's there. You can tell that this is very much his imagination trying to hold on to what that would be like if she were here with him. And I just found it so sweet and so sad that it like wrenches at your heart for a bit. And God, it really makes you feel for Sam. Whereas it puts Annie in like the opposite position where she sort of is in a position to have everything. And it's like, but maybe this isn't the everything I want.
Yeah.
There's a line, though, that I think is important for what the movie is going for, again, in that sense of looking for magic, not looking for practicality. And I think it was said by Rosie O'Donnell, who, like, I just had to realize right now is in this movie because I forgot about it. That's your problem. You don't want to be in love. You want to be in love in a movie.
Yeah.
And that's sort of what it's like. Because these two characters, I think I might have it the actual amount of time they spent together in the movie, but they literally don't meet in the movie and have an official meeting until like 2 to 5 minutes are left in the movie.
Yes.
Which is a very interesting way of doing it, because I feel like that's the challenge you would lay out for yourself before you started writing the script. Like, how can I make a romance movie where the characters never meet?
Yeah. Yeah. Yes.
And that's cool. That's a cool idea. Oh, I have another quote here where Sam just broke my heart. It just doesn't happen twice.
Oh God.
But I also wrote after that, which makes me sad because I know by the end of the movie he will have just grown a new heart and moved on. It's the nature of the genre. But I don't know if that is necessarily what happens. But boy, Tom Hanks saying that, you're like, oh.
I know. It's devastating. And there are so many times when like, oh, you know what gets me? Jonah wakes up in the middle of a night from a nightmare and he cries, "Mommy!" And Tom Hanks runs in and tries to comfort him. And he says to him, Jonah says to Sam, "I'm starting to forget her."
Again, oh
God. Like, and I think what I think is really beautiful about this movie is that you could write a movie where Tom Hanks is a single dad for whatever reason, or Tom Hanks is just Tom Hanks and he's wrapped up in work and he never meets anybody. And Annie hears a story about him on the radio and da-da. But the fact of the matter is, it is acknowledging that Tom Hanks has already met the love of his life and he has lost her to whatever disease it was that she died from. And so it's like, starting again. It's can lightning strike twice? Like, and I love that we don't know what happens with Annie and Sam, but I think in both of their cases, they've both attempted in one way or another love, successfully for Sam, unsuccessfully for Annie. And it's like, can you try again? And I just think it's so nice. And I love that we don't need to know what happens between Sam and Annie. What we need to know is that Sam is willing to try again.
Which I do appreciate that they at least, I think they said at some point that it's been like 18 months or something like that.
Oh, yeah.
Because otherwise, when the movie starts at like a funeral, I was like, it's very much, it's a cliche. We practically see it in every Daisy movie, to have a Disney movie, to have a dead parent or a dead spouse or whatever. And it really, like, part of me immediately going into it was like, why does his wife have to be dead? Because it just makes it feel terrible when the woman he says he truly knew was the love of his life is gone. And they're like, but we'll find somebody for him by the end. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And again, it doesn't necessarily do that. Another line that I don't know if you'll remember, there's a certain line from Clerks. There's a character in Clerks who just says, "That's beautiful, man." Do you remember what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I do.
I literally just thought that to myself after Tom Hanks, Sam says, "It was like coming home, only to know home I'd never known." And I literally just went, "That's beautiful, man."
Yeah. I mean, it's sweet. It's so interesting, right? Because you think about it in so many ways. You think about like, what if I die? You know what I mean? Is he going to talk about me that way? And then there's also the like, what if he had lost someone? Could I be there for him? Like there are just so many. It's not your typical love story because there is this very big elephant in the room.
What if his wife had just turned into a worm? Would he still have loved her?
That's my favorite. Does Giselle ever ask you that? Would you still love me if I was a worm?
I think if you've been together long enough, that has definitely been asked. So yes, it's been asked.
Cool. Good. I'm glad to know.
Let me ask you
Would
something.
you?
What? Of course I would. Yes, of course.
Okay, good. Smart man.
In 2023, they're remaking this movie. They are updating the movie. They're not actually doing that, hypothetically.
Yeah.
How does Annie find out about Sam?
I guess he goes viral on TikTok.
That was literally exactly what I had written down. I'm like picturing
Yeah.
Sam's viral TikTok, and she's like, "Yo, this is lit. I gotta find this. The vibes are too good."
The vibes.
Low key,
Yeah.
I think this guy's pretty peak.
I want to state kind of a maybe like a hot take. If I
Go
may.
ahead.
This was my movie choice. I love this movie. I don't think this is like a life-altering movie. Like, I do not think that this is a movie that teaches you anything. I don't think it sticks with you necessarily. I don't think even like The Great Gatsby to me, which is obviously based on a wonderful piece of literature, I think has so many different things that we could discuss and analyze. And this doesn't have any of that. I just think it's a good movie. I think it's a sweet way to spend about 90 to 100 minutes. I think it is beautiful. I think Tom Hanks does a great job. I think Nora Ephron just knows what the fuck she's doing. But I don't necessarily think this is like an Academy Award winning piece of artwork.
I do also think it's important, though, and very much a part of Movies to Watch Before You Die is just movies that you enjoy. Like, we both agreed about Game Night. Game Night is, you're not going to change your life by the end of Game Night, but you're going to have had a good time. That would be my hope. Which, spoilers, I guess, if you haven't listened to the Game Night episode yet, but whatever.
Yeah.
Another thing I have written down. I did not like Jonah's little friend either. The one who's like, just buy a plane ticket. H&G. What's that mean? Hi and goodbye. And I'm like, this little bitch. Like,
Right.
she was like 8 years old. And I was like, what
crazy?
the fuck?
Did you ever watch Girls on HBO?
No.
Okay. So after I had surgery, I was still living in my studio apartment. This was only like 7 weeks ago. But essentially I couldn't leave my bed, and Corey and I didn't live together yet. So I was just basically like home alone all day. So I decided to rewatch Girls, which is one of my favorite TV series. I ended up stopping about 3/4 of the way through because it's extraordinarily depressing. And it was not making me feel any better, but I watched a good chunk of it. And on the TV show Girls, there's a character, and I'm forgetting her name, but she's Adam Driver's sister on the show. And she's this fucking lunatic woman, just like lunatic woman. And I'm watching Sleepless in Seattle, and I'm looking at that little girl, and I'm like, I think that is this woman. And so I'm unfortunately, maybe we can put a picture of it or something in the description, but I'm going to show you a photo of this woman now, and you're going to be like shook. I wonder if should I share my screen? Is that the best way to do this?
You can.
Here.
I will be putting the description also. There was a couple of them, but I'm going to put one particular Sleepless in Seattle horror trailer that I liked the most.
Oh, you seem to have blocked me from sharing my screen. So I'm just going to
I don't know how I did that, but sure.
Me neither. Here, take a look. I hope you remember what this little girl looks like, because otherwise it's not really going to make sense here. But here.
I mean, it's that you can share. It's too little too late now, but it doesn't matter.
Too late.
I should cut out most of this. We'll see if I do.
It's okay. Do you see it?
I'm like, how long ago was this movie? That is a very, like, I would not have realized.
Oh my God,
it
I knew
makes
it
sense.
right
That
away.
That's an impressive, like, that snapped into your mind.
I was like, I know what kind of crazy person this child grew up to be. But it's just funny because her character on Girls is not too dissimilar. Like, she's a bitch. She's just crazy. But anyway, I digress. That was a fun moment for me, though. I was like, damn, I'm good.
Good for you. Props.
Thank you.
Oh, I did right here. Her coming to Seattle to look for Jonah and Sam, and this is literally what I read. And oh my God, stalking them is absolutely cuckoo. Way worse than the You've Got Mail catfishing.
Oh my God.
They literally, it's just the fact there's literally a shot of them delightfully playing on a beach. It's such a nice, like, what a good dad Sam is. And you just see Annie like just staring at them from behind a building. And you're like, this is weird.
What about when Sam and Jonah are on their boat and she's frantically driving along a bridge to watch them on the water?
That's weird. It's so weird. Like,
it's
again,
weird, but also, like, have you ever been in a situation where you've seen someone and you're like trying to work up the nerve to talk to them, you don't want to lose them, and you're like, we do crazy shit all the time.
Yeah, not really. I saw it's a couple months ago now, but my coworker brings it up all the time. She saw me and Giselle in Target, and I looked at her, thought it might have been her, did not get an acknowledgement quick enough, and I was like, fuck it, we're not doing this then. I just walked past, and she's like, I waved to you, and I'm like, didn't see the wave, it was too late. I kept going.
That's so funny. I just got home this afternoon, and in the lobby of my building was this girl who looked kind of familiar, but I was like listening to our podcast, actually. I was grabbing my mail, going to the elevator, and she stops and she goes, Gab? And I was like, oh, fuck, I have no idea who this person is. And then I realized very quickly that she used to take my class at Cycle Bar. I just like vaguely recognized her, and then I put it together. But like, I forgot why I started telling you this.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess I just ultimately like didn't really like want to acknowledge her. Like I was just like in my own world, and she like went out of her way to be like, oh my God, hi. And it felt crazy to me because I was like, okay, like I vaguely remember you. That was like 5 years ago. But I understand that she was excited because she recognized me, and it was such a weird coincidence. So I don't know. I guess like when you're the person that's like in the know, I understand why you do like crazy things, I guess.
I do hate when you run into a person though. And like, I feel like it's definitely happened with people who like knew me when I was like, they were friends with my parents and like randomly saw me, and you're like, hi, you. You know what I mean?
Hey,
Just like,
buddy.
not happening.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so funny. Corey is like the friendliest person in the world. And so he makes friends everywhere we go. And then we'll be walking down the street and someone will be like, Corey. And then I'm like, do I know this person? Is this person like from before me?
You got
do I
to
pretend
hey, buddy.
to know them? I'm like, hey. And then they'll hug me and I'm like, oh God, do they know it's me? And then afterward, I'm like, who is that? He's like, oh, it's so-and-so from so-and-so. And I'm like, oh, thank God. Okay, I did know them. But yeah, like I'm not great with that in general.
Yeah, no, I'm not either.
Yeah.
And if I know your name, you'll know it. I'll say it. I'll immediately greet you with your name. Yeah, I'm not going to be like, hey.
Hey, stud.
Couple more quotes I wrote down, a couple more notes I took. Is this crazy? No, that's the weirdest part about it. And that's just like Andy and Rosie O'Donnell talking, and I'm like, no, you gotta help your friend out here. You're gonna be like, it's a little crazy. Like,
Yeah,
you
can do it, but it is crazy.
Yeah, it is easier to be killed by a terrorist than to find a husband after the age of 40. Again, maybe that's a pre 9/11 thing that they're throwing that line out there, but I was like, okay, interesting.
Yeah, very bizarre.
Jonah has the original Game Boy.
Yep.
That was dope. Just saying. And here it is. Jonah's telling Sam about the letter, and it's the woman he likes, and he says there's no way that we are going on a plane to meet some woman who could be a crazy sick lunatic. Didn't you see Fatal Attraction? And Jonah goes, you wouldn't let me. Well, I saw it, and it scared the shit out of me, and it scared the shit out of every man in America.
It's a great movie.
I've never even seen it. I know enough about it that I'm like, that was funny to me.
Wow, I'm shocked. Glenn Close, there's another woman who is hideous, and we all just pretended was attractive.
I'm not going to say anything bad about Glenn Close. She's a treasure. She's a great actress.
Okay, that doesn't make her hot.
I'm not here to comment on hotness. Who am I to talk about Glenn Close's hotness?
Hurry up. Finish.
Did you not have to pay to go on the observation deck in the 90s?
Apparently, you really just had to get in the elevator and hit the button. Now you've got to fucking go through Disney World, and there's a ride and there's a restaurant. It's crazy.
Yeah, because Jonah just gets up there super easy. I'm like, they said that he might have enough money for the taxi, and I'm like, first of all, how do these kids know how to calculate that?
Yeah.
Like, it's if they've ever been in a taxi, they're not looking at the meter. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, I have no idea. And it's expensive.
Yeah, of course. Wait, which thing?
Going up to the
I think it's like about $40.
I think it is. I think Corey spent closer to 60 per ticket because we did the nausea inducing the top.
The tippity top.
Yeah, which we both have a fear of heights and could not do.
And I did find myself, you forget about it from the standpoint in which you're watching it, but a thing that I just found myself thinking about afterwards is the amount of coincidences that it takes. You know what I mean? The coincidence of in the airport, the coincidence of the car nearly splatting Annie and Sam seeing Annie and just going hi. They both just say hi to each other. The coincidence of literally they don't even meet on the observation deck, if not for the fact that Jonah leaves his backpack up there and they have to go back up.
Well, and she goes up
too late.
And she sees the backpack and it says Seattle, and she like intuitively knows that it's Jonah's. And I think she knows they're coming back for it. But isn't that what love is? Isn't love just a series of coincidences that lead to something beautiful?
No. Now I feel like we're doing the bit from Seinfeld. There are no big coincidences and small coincidences. There are just coincidences. You know what I mean? There's no magic love coincidences and regular coincidences.
I disagree.
They're also just, they're not coincidences. They're plot devices.
Oh, okay. That's so romantic of you, Dylan.
I will say, from the charm side, it felt like in You've Got Mail, they were equally charming in different ways. Obviously, I have more leanings towards Tom Hanks, just so I like Tom Hanks a lot.
Of course.
This movie, Tom Hanks is doing a lot more of the charm work. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess give me your facts because I really want to get to the verdicts.
Okay. And when we get to the verdicts, I think we need to do one more thing about You've Got Mail because you texted me something interesting relating to it.
Yeah. And then I answered you and you fucking ghosted me.
Well, I didn't want to talk about it, not on the podcast. I did.
Okay, but you ghosted me. That's not cool, bro.
It's not like you weren't going to see me. Here I am.
I want the truth.
Face the facts, dukes.
Facts have no place with an organized religion.
Let's get to some facts. Okay, let's start with our ratings. So IMDb gives this a 6.8 out of 10. Rotten Tomatoes, the tomato meter gives it a 75% with an average rating of 6.6 out of 10, 45 fresh reviews, 15 rotten. Audience score 75% with an average score of 3.8 out of 5. As stated, the movie was directed by Nora Ephron, who also directed You've Got Mail, Julie and Julia, and Bewitched. It was also written by Nora Ephron, David S. Ward, and Jeff Arch, who also wrote When Harry Met Sally, Major League, and The Sting, which I thought was a pretty wide variety of movies that those three have written.
Yeah.
Stars Tom Hanks as Sam Baldwin, who you know from things. Do I really need to tell you what you know Tom Hanks from? You should.
Don't insult me. Yeah.
Meg Ryan as Annie, who you may know from Top Gun, When Harry Met Sally, and Inner Space. Who else is important enough to really talk about? Ross Malinger as Jonah, who also was the voice of T.J. Detweiler in 28 episodes of Recess.
Wow.
I found that very coincidental.
That is so cool. Wait a second. Why only 28 episodes?
What would happen is they cast a lot of real kids for the voices. So once they got a little bit older, their voices would start to change and they would have different kids play them.
Wow. How come I never noticed that?
I don't know.
Wow. Crazy. All right, cool.
Small world.
Yeah.
The movie was nominated for 2 Academy Awards, one for Best Original Screenplay, and the other for Best Original Song for A Wink and a Smile.
Okay.
It was also nominated by the Casting Society of America for Best Casting for a Feature Film in the Comedy category, which it does have a very good cast.
It does. It really does.
The critics' consensus, Sleepless in Seattle is a cute classic with a very light touch and real chemistry between the two leads, even when spending an entire movie apart.
Agreed.
We got some reviews. Roger Ebert from the Chicago Sun-Times. Sleepless in Seattle is as ephemeral as a talk show, as contrived as The Late Show, and yet so warm and gentle I smiled the whole way through.
Yeah.
Eugene Novikov from Film Blather, and possibly from the Soviet Russia. I don't know, I just like his name, Novikov. Nora Ephron botched Sleepless in Seattle, a hollow, boring romance that should appeal only to the most gullible of viewers, the ones willing to buy into Ephron's whiny views of life and romance. Harsh.
Wow, that is rude. Okay.
Bit harsh. Brian Lowry from Variety. Ephron and fellow writers Jeff Arch and David S. Ward have conspired to make Sleepless in Seattle as purposefully schmaltzy as one can imagine, in a manner that's almost cynical. There was a lot more people who went hard against it. Like, I know it's 45 positive reviews and 15 rotten, but the 15 rotten, those guys were so
Yeah.
very much against it.
They went in.
Peter Travers from Rolling Stone. It's easily the hippest, frankest, and funniest date movie around. Last one, Mike Massey from Gone with the Twins. Despite a madcap, slapstick type of comic conclusion with no real hope of marital longevity, the film is terribly romantic.
Yeah. Agreed.
Oh, I didn't say the very specific numbers. So the movie cost $21 million to make and ended up grossing $228 million.
Wow.
Let me get to some fun facts here. Writer Jeff Arch was saying that in 1974 in college, he watched An Affair to Remember, the movie they talk about a bunch of times, with a girl and couldn't take it anymore. He went to turn and say, "What a bunch of horseshit this is," and she was crying. And he told her, if in the distant future of 1980, you're not with anyone and I'm not with anyone, I'll meet you on the Empire State Building on New Year's Eve. They did not.
Oh, yeah.
Let me see here. The scene between Tom Hanks and Victor Garber crying over the Dirty Dozen was completely improvised during the take.
That was so good. I think that's one of my favorite parts of the movie.
I think it's one of the parts that I feel like I heard talked about the most when I was looking up things afterwards. How, the comparison between women's movies and men's movies, which feels a little antiquated today. I don't think it's as common either way, but it was interesting.
Yeah.
Despite playing the role of his sister in the movie, Rita Wilson is the real-life wife of Tom Hanks. They had been married for 5 years at the time of the release of the movie.
I love them together. I think anytime they're on screen together, you can. I genuinely feel like you can feel the magic between the two of them. You know what I mean?
I feel like when I looked her up, I thought I had seen her in a lot more things than I have.
Yeah, she's on Girls.
Well, the main thing that I think I really remember her for is Jingle All the Way.
Right? Yeah. She's great.
All right.
But I do feel the magic between them. Sorry.
You think so? Even as fake brother and sister?
Yes, 100%.
While making the film, Nora Ephron was focused on its long-term legacy, saying, "Our dream was to make a movie about how movies screw up your brain about love. And then if we did a good job, we would become one of the movies that would screw up people's brains about love forever."
Yeah. Oh
I
my
feel
God.
like it's probably a little more
Success.
depthful of a thought than the movie actually feels like, but I get where she's coming from.
Yeah.
Now, finally, I've got this one's a little bit of a trivia question for you.
Okay.
The American Film Institute named it number 10 in its top 10 romantic comedies. Do you want to take a stab and see if you can get any of 1 through 9?
Oh my God. Okay. Yes, I do. When Harry Met Sally.
When Harry Met Sally is on there.
Okay. Is there any way you can tell me what year this list came out?
I'm not certain on the year the list came out, but I can tell you there's not a movie after 2000 on here.
Okay, thank you. That's all I need to know. Romantic comedy. Let's go. You've Got Mail.
No.
Okay, that's fine. Let's go. Oh man.
To be honest, there's a lot of older movies. There's only one other movie that I think I know for sure that I think you would mention. You know what I mean?
Casablanca. That's not a comedy.
No.
Okay, just tell me.
Not very romantic ending. So number 1, they had City Lights from 1931.
Never seen it.
Number 2, Annie Hall.
Oh, of course.
Number 3,
although also doesn't feel romantic, but okay.
I don't know. I haven't seen it.
Oh my God, we're doing it.
Number 4, Roman Holiday. Number 5,
No.
The Philadelphia Story. Number 6,
No.
When Harry Met Sally. Number 7, Adam's Rib. Number 8, Moonstruck. And number 9, Harold and Maude.
Moonstruck is a movie that we should do. Scott Interante has requested it. He said he would be a guest on for that episode. I really nailed 50 only 2 of those on there have I ever heard of. Harry and
Most of
Moonstruck,
them are
and I
a
got
lot
50%.
older.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Tom Hanks lost at the 51st Golden Globes for Best Actor in a Musical Comedy to Robin Williams for Mrs. Doubtfire.
Oh,
Don't feel
fine,
too
that's
bad
fair.
though, because he won Best Actor Drama for Philadelphia at the same Golden Globes.
Yes, go Tom. That's my favorite performance of his.
The 90s for Tom Hanks were just absolute dominance, weren't they?
I mean, he's still living off the money he made in the 90s.
When Meg Ryan's character is in the kitchen in the middle of the night listening to the best of radio callers, the caller Disappointed in Denver is voiced by Nora Ephron.
Amazing.
And last one here, Meg Ryan and Tom Hanks share approximately 2 minutes of screen time together in this movie.
Yeah. I mean, I think you're right. I think it's like a cool prompt. Write a romantic comedy where the 2 characters never in the
yes,
same room.
that I
Never
think
meet.
is probably the most interesting aspect. It's like, write me an action movie where nobody fights. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Which I feel like we've
Yeah.
kind of seen in some of I'm trying to think. I feel like Edgar Wright does that somewhat where like there's so much action in the times where there isn't action. But
Yeah.
and speaking of action, let's take action and get to the mail. How about that?
That was a good one.
It wasn't. Okay.
No, I'm happy with that.
Mail time! When you control the mail, you control information.
Mom asked me to ask you if there's any mail for us here by mistake.
What?
Let's get to some comments that we have on Recess School's Out, a movie that
Which, by the
one
way,
of us loved.
I think was our best episode yet. I hated the movie. I think the episode was gold. I've listened to it multiple times.
I haven't really listened to the episode yet. I intend to shortly.
So good.
But let's see what people who did listen had to say.
Okay.
And of course, one of those people is Scotty Cameron.
Scotty.
Scotty said, I watched Recess as a kid and I enjoyed the show, but I regret to inform you I have not seen this movie. I'll have to watch it sometime over the summer now that school's out. I may bring back childhood memories. I assume he meant it may bring back childhood memories of watching Recess on ABC Kids. On the subject of universities versus colleges, universities are institutions that offer both graduate and undergraduate programs, while colleges are liberal arts and technical schools that only offer undergraduate programs.
Huh. Wow. Thank you, Scotty.
That's why Scotty's our Jamie. He's the I get to the facts, but he is the fact guy.
Yeah.
Having attended community college before transferring to university, I have some experience in those various institutions. From my understanding, colleges offer associate's degrees while universities offer bachelor's degrees. I
Nope.
obtained my associate degree in liberal arts from Johnson County Community College, JCCC, and am pursuing a political science bachelor's degree at the University of Kansas City, Missouri.
Well, I regret to inform you that I got my bachelor's degree at Marymount Manhattan College.
Shit. She just blew them facts up.
Yep. Sorry.
It never really occurred to me that there was a difference between college and university until it was discussed, so I had to do my Jamie duties and figure it out. Now you know, and knowing is half the battle.
Funny.
And of course, more from Scotty. From what I've seen, the homies figures are still being made.
Oh my God.
But their popularity dwindled, largely because law enforcement entities urged retailers like Walmart and Safeway to stop carrying the toys. That happened in the early to mid 2000s. Anyway, that's all I could find as far as the seeming disappearance of homies' toys. Wait, I feel like there's a much deeper story there, but okay.
Oh my God, can I interrupt you? Because it just hit me like a bolt of lightning. I remember what those other figures are called.
Okay.
It just hit me with listening to Scotty talk about the homies. They were called Crazy Bones.
Were they like little ghosts?
Yeah, they were like little, but they were like blue or orange or red or green. Crazy Bones.
Yeah, they were like
Anybody
more neon
else?
looking.
Yes. And they were hard plastic, and I don't remember what you did with them, but they came in the mail. You got a little thing with 2 of them, and I played with them all the time. I loved them. They were just like homies, but they were hard plastic, and they were like ghostesses.
I feel like these things are all just terrible choking hazards.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Oh well.
I can't believe that just hit me like in that moment. I had said on the previous episode of the podcast, oh, I'm gonna ask my dad. He'll remember, but he never would have fucking remembered that. I remember that. I'm a genius.
I was gonna say, your dad, my uncle, surely does not care enough to remember that. Like,
no,
why would he?
Not. Crazy Bones. Scotty, do me a favor. Look up Crazy Bones and give us a little information on that.
How crazy is it? Is it crazy with a C or is it crazy with a K? It's so crazy.
I don't remember, but my instinct says it was a C because they were like mildly to severe plaque psoriasis.
I also feel like there has to be more to the story that law enforcement stopped retailers from selling homies.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll get off the topic of homies. One subject I did find intriguing in this episode is how well television shows translate to film, and I think the law of diminishing returns applies to show to film. One observation I've made is that comedy shows don't translate to film as well as action adventure shows because most of the conflicts in a comedy show are resolved in 11 to 20 minutes and really don't go beyond that. So a 90-minute conflict. What we said. It is?
That's exactly what we said. Yeah.
Well, I'll take your word for it. You listened to it. I haven't yet. So a 90-minute conflict is a bit of a stretch. Meanwhile, action adventure shows have conflicts that span more than one episode, and thus 90-minute conflict is more justified. It's largely why Star Trek and Mission Impossible have gone on to be such great film franchises, while SpongeBob, Simpsons, and Mr. Bean have produced okay movies.
Mm-hmm.
You know what's the one comedy show that comes to my mind that went on to be a more successful film franchise?
What?
The Naked Gun.
That was a TV show?
It was a TV show that was canceled after like 6 episodes, and it became a film trilogy that was, fairly successful.
Yeah, I love that. I love at least the first one. I don't remember like 33 and a third or whatever it was.
Yeah, it's a Naked Gun 2.5 and Naked Gun 33 and a third, The Final Insult, I think it's called.
Yeah.
But all 3 of those movies definitely have funny moments in them.
Oh, for sure.
And we got an email from Vitz.
Yay!
Subject, been busy, still listening. Recess, school's out. Let me get this straight. The strategy is to eliminate summer vacation by moving the moon to freeze the planet, therefore increasing winter vacation and snow closures? Sure, summer is canceled, but I feel like it doesn't exactly fix the problem. The point, Vitz, was that now the kids are forced to stay indoors, and being indoors, they'll be forced to study.
The point is, this movie was hot garbage.
The point is, you're overthinking this movie for children. I loved this show, and this movie keeps pace with the program itself. It's not all that great as a movie, but a fun watch. I'll take it. The joke TJ had of, I'm going to be taxpayers someday, after being laughed out of the police station was really good, and it had a couple one-liners, like Finster saying, hey, leave those kids alone from Pink Floyd's The Wall Part 2. This is not a movie to watch before you die for me. Great soundtrack, though. Fine. Unmentioned voice talents that I feel should be given their dues, which I feel like I would have done, but I don't. I feel like during the fact segment, if I spend 10 minutes just talking about all the voice actors that I'm like, I know them from this thing, it gets tedious for at least, half of the hosts. The not me host.
Uh-huh.
The 60s superintendent was voiced by Robert Stack, who's the host of Unsolved Mysteries.
Interesting.
The bald guy, who was, the secondary villain, was voiced by Clancy Brown, who he lists as Vitz lists him as Drill Sergeant Zim from Starship Troopers and Mr. Krabs from SpongeBob. He's also Lex Luthor from the DCAU.
Why do you say it like that?
Luthor?
Yeah.
As opposed to Lex Luthor?
Isn't it Luther?
You know what? I feel like in anything I've seen where it's actually good, he refers to himself as Lex Luthor. And anytime I see a bad Superman thing, he's Lex Luthor.
Okay.
I
So
don't
this
know.
is not like in East Broadway.
No, it is not. It's not me just sounding stupid. It's Luthor as
Okay,
opposed
how
to
does Martin
Luter.
and that's how Martin Jr. spells it?
What?
Martin Luther King Jr.
Is Luther.
Okay. All right, I can see that. All right. I forgive you. You can move on now.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Mhm.
Dr. Rosenthal from Recess was voiced by Tony Jay, who was Claude Frollo from The Hunchback of Notre Dame.
Wow.
Colonel O'Malley, the TJ's changed voice in the military camp, it was voiced by R. Lee Ermey, who was the drill sergeant from Full Metal Jacket. He was in the Texas Chainsaw movies. And finally, we have a recommendation on cartoon movies based from their original show. Vitz recommends a Goofy movie.
Oh my God, I love that movie.
We're children of the 90s. Of course, we love a Goofy movie. I think I have it on my list, and I'm like, we can't do Goofy movie. It's too obvious.
You do have it on your list. I recently was listening to oh my God, what was the name of the Power Line song
Eye
from
to
a
Eye?
Goofy movie? Eye to Eye, yes. Yeah. Like
I
the
know
Michael
that because
Jackson.
it's on Giselle's playlist, so I hear it frequently.
It's a good one.
It's also, I feel like it was the last gasps of Pauly Shore. Like him being like,
Yeah.
it's the cheese. Like, it's like, oh, and that was it. Never
The
to be
Cheese
heard from
Whiz.
again. Yes.
Yep. Yeah. He was canceled after that.
Not for doing anything terrible, just for not being that
Being
entertaining
annoying.
anymore. Yeah.
Yeah.
And now, shall we get to some verdicts for what is this for? Sleepless in Seattle.
That's really how you feel about it? Yeah, I guess so.
What do you mean?
Like, you don't even remember? It means that little to you?
Well, due to the time vortex, this is a different time. It's not, you're hearing me say this in the middle of the Sleepless in Seattle episode, but I'm not recording this in the middle of the Sleepless in Seattle episode.
Oh, okay.
You never know. Let's hear what I have to say.
Do or do not. There is no try.
The guilty will be punished.
Sentence is death.
I'll go first, of course.
As you shall. This is your movie.
I have said it before and I'll say it again. I do not think this is a movie that you take with you when you go home. I don't think that this is a movie that sparks any kind of real thought about life or love. I don't even think that anybody can really relate to it necessarily, unless you have lost a spouse and or stalked somebody. I think sometimes for me, the thing that really gets me in a movie and makes me emotional is when I feel that I relate to it, whether I relate to it specifically or I feel as though it's like analogous for something that I'm going through or have gone through. And there's none of that in this movie. I just think it's sweet. I think it's well done. I think it is kind of a gold standard for romance movies. Maybe romantic comedies, I guess, if it goes in that genre. But ultimately, I think it is truly like the definition of a movie you should watch before you die. I just think everyone needs to see it. It's very well done. It's sweet, it's romantic, it's quirky, and it just is the pinnacle of that genre. That's it.
Now, Gav, the other important question, being that it's a very similar feel, very similar creative and talent team behind You've Got Mail. Do you think that this is a better movie than You've Got Mail?
I do. I really do. And the only reason that I believe it's better than You've Got Mail is because You've Got Mail is so similar, except that there's really no part of it that like really tugs at your heartstrings. Like the end of the movie when the dog runs up to Meg Ryan and Tom Hanks is calling and she says, I wanted it to be you so badly. Like that's very sweet. And it will like well up a little bit of water in my eyes. But I mean, Sleepless in Seattle, like I'm sobbing. I'm in all those moments we discussed. So I just think it's a better movie because it evokes more emotion. It's a little bit more I think to evoke emotion in somebody is an art form in and of itself. And so while You've Got Mail is entertaining and it's sweet and it's romantic and it's like, aw, I don't think it really does to the human emotion what Sleepless in Seattle does.
Interesting. Because I definitely think that I feel the ending of You Got Mail a lot more because they have spent all that time getting to know each other. And it's like, when she does realize that it is him, she, she realizes, oh my God, it's, it's the person I thought it was. And while I made fun of him semi catfishing her, there is this aspect that he has worked so hard to get to know her and to try and make her feel for him the way he knows he feels about her. And when it finally happens, she realizes, oh my God, I have loved you and didn't know it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's why I don't think Sleepless in Seattle is a movie to watch before you die. Because Sleepless in Seattle is so hollow to me, because I never feel the love between them, because I keep feeling like she does not know this man and he does not know her. And
here's where I think you're missing it. I don't think it's a love story about two people. I think it's a story about love. I do not think it is a romance about Meg Ryan and Tom Hanks. I think it's a movie about how it feels to be in love, whether you're in love with your dead wife, whether you realize you're not in love with the person that you're engaged to be married to, when you feel that spark. Because she and Tom Hanks, Meg Ryan and Tom Hanks may not work out, but I think that just the fact that she felt that way about a stranger was an indication that she should not be with Walter. I don't think this is a romance about two people. I think it is a movie about love.
You're probably right. But I'm watching the movie about Annie and Sam, and to me, it just feels like where I don't want cliches, there are cliches. Where I do want cliches, they sometimes aren't there.
But you don't feel like, even as a film buff, that this is simply a movie that you need to see if you love film? If you were talking to somebody and they said they'd never seen Sleepless in Seattle, you wouldn't be like, really? Because that's how I feel about like The Sound of Music. I don't think that's one of my favorite movies, but I just feel like you have to see it.
No, I would say go watch You've Got Mail.
But you said that wasn't a movie to watch before you die, you stupid
I did say that was a movie to watch before you die.
You did? Oh, sorry.
Check our list. Check the description, motherfucker. Oh my God.
Sorry.
Cool your jets.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's right. Pump your brakes.
Every week now I listen to the episode of our podcast and I don't remember if I said yes or no. So I'm all excited to hear my verdict.
I do the same thing where I listen to the episode and I'm like, I said that? What an idiot. No.
Yeah. I was shocked to hear what my verdict was for the Audrey Hepburn movie. But anyway.
Wait Until Dark. I'm still very disappointed. But
yeah,
I gotta tell you, it's funny. You having said Sleepless in Seattle is better to you than You've Got Mail, I was so surprised, because I was waiting for you to say after watching it that you were like, oh my God, I totally forgot that You've Got Mail is way better than this. Because I talked to Giselle afterwards and she was like, oh yeah, You've Got Mail is way better than Sleepless in Seattle. She was like, it's funny, she has family on the West Coast, so she used to go to Seattle every year, and she's like, yeah, in Pike Place Market, they're always like, this is the place where Tom Hanks was. And I was always like, I don't care.
Yeah. I mean, I get it. I definitely finished the movie and I was like, okay, that was a good movie. It wasn't like I finished The Great Gatsby and I wanted to talk about, all these big ideas and the the literary components and what it means to be able to go back in time, all that bullshit. And I don't feel that way about Sleepless in Seattle. It's just a movie. It's fine. But I do think that it is a beautiful movie about what it means to love someone. I don't think it's a love story about those two people in the least. And obviously You've Got Mail is a love story about two people, but this movie is just about how it feels to love someone and also how it feels to not love someone and how hard it is to try to convince yourself you love somebody when you don't.
Yeah, I just think with a romance movie, you want to believe that, part of the genre of romance is I feel like a lot of the time it's supposed to end with that happily ever after feeling. And I felt like by the end of this that I was like, these people are going to realize I don't know who the hell you are, random lady I saw in airport, and I don't know who the hell you are, guy I heard on the talk show talking about the wife he actually loved.
Yeah, but isn't love all about taking a chance when you feel that maybe it could work? You know what I mean?
I guess, like I said, this feels like a very interesting script writing exercise.
Yeah.
And it feels like an okay movie. Like, it wasn't a bad movie. You know what I mean? Yeah. I'm not at all saying that. There's a lot of charm. There's a lot of jokes that work. The kid is very cute when he's not being a dickhead.
Yeah.
But yeah, at the end of the day, I just didn't feel like it rose to the same level that You've Got Mail did to me.
I'm just so surprised because I thought you were medium well on You've Got Mail. But I'll say this. I think that
I like this description based on food cooking now.
Yeah, medium well. You're medium rare on Sleepless in Seattle, but you were medium well on You've Got Mail. The thing to me is like, as somebody who really loves this genre of film, you watch You've Got Mail and you think like, God, I wish somebody loved me that much. Like, I wish that somebody would go that far out of their way to get me because they feel like they've only got one shot and they don't want to fuck it up and, whatever. And you watch Sleepless in Seattle and you're like, I hope I'm never in a position where I hear some guy with a dead wife on the radio and I go out of my way to do, or vice versa. Like, it's not a story where you're like, oh, what a beautiful love story. I hope that my life turns out that way. It's just commentary on love.
I did feel like, and I feel like I'm about to sound so schmaltzy because I'm talking about my wife, who I would still love if she became a worm. But I did feel for Sam in the sense that I can only imagine how devastating it would be to lose that person.
Right.
And like, that's why I felt that way that, when he's talking about it doesn't happen twice, or he's talking about, picturing her and what it is she would have said, that like, it just hurt me so much because I could just think of like how it's the same reason that, and I think I've shamefully admitted it before, that I cried at the end of The Notebook because I was like, this movie's going to be so fucking stupid. And at the end I was like, he loves her so much. He's just trying to convince her that she's his wife and that they love each other. And like, I was like, God damn it, this movie tore me apart.
I would love to do an episode on The Notebook because I think it is the most toxic, horrible. And I don't mean as a movie. Like, its validity as a film, not even touching. I think that movie tells little girls that when you love someone, all you do with them is fight. That love and passion is anger and hatred and fighting. And it is the single most toxic thing because that is not at all what love is. Love is not fighting with someone mercilessly. Even like the line in that movie is like, they didn't get along. They didn't agree on anything, but the only thing they agreed on was that they love each other. Like, that's not real. That is not how you should feel.
I think there's a problem with a lot of romantic comedies or romance movies that they tell you at the end of the day that love is the big gesture. And they do that because it's a movie. We have to do it in this many hours and there has to be conflict. Because in reality, love is much more of a television show and not a movie, where it's every day you're making that decision to work on things, to love that person, to try and keep things great because you care so much and so deeply.
Yeah.
It's not.
I love that. That might be the smartest thing you've ever said.
Really? I don't say a lot of smart things. I'm going to be honest, Gab. I'm just checking in. What did I say?
You said love is a television show, not a movie. That is the best thing I've ever heard. I'm so proud of you.
I binged that show.
Wow, that's really great. No, I agree with you totally. Also, I hate, while we're on the subject, and we should wrap this up, I hate when people say love is hard. Like relationships are hard. Love is hard. Somebody said that to me once. Somebody looked me in the eye, dead in the eye, and said, well, you understand, healthy relationships are hard. And I was like, not really. No.
I guess I understand saying that. I would say that love requires work.
Sure.
Yeah, love requires, definitely a lot of work.
But it's not hard because you want to do it.
Yes. And I'm sure there are days in every relationship that are hard. The best relationship is full of shit if they tell you we haven't ever had a hard day or a fight.
Right.
But, I got to tell you, most days should not be that. If most days are hard, that's a problem.
Yeah. Yeah. And I just think that The Notebook really, I mean, I know it did for me because I had a boyfriend. He listens to this podcast. Scott, what's up? How you doing? But like we fought all the time. And honestly, I think a lot of that was just being young and stupid. But I remember thinking like, that's what love is. You just fight all the time. That's how I knew we were meant to be. We fought all the time. And like,
yes.
No.
That's why there's a toxicity to it that I feel like a lot of little girls see these movies where it's like, well, they hated each other for 80% of it, but he did that amazing huge gesture at the end. And then I assume everything's great.
All was forgiven. Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. 100%. Yeah, absolutely. Well, listen,
I was going to try and make it an analogy somehow comparing Daisy going off with Tom, but I'm like, no, Tom's terrible.
No,
there's no love there. They're just like,
no.
Yeah, go on.
That's
go
pure
ahead.
convenience.
Do our spiel.
Well, I respect you.
And
I love you.
Respect.
Yeah, I respect
and
you.
love you as well.
Okay. Listen, we can still be family, but I disagree with you on this. But also, you know what? At the end of the day, I don't love this movie enough to really be upset about it. I get it. You're entitled to your opinion. It's fine. I'm not going to watch this movie again for a number of years. And when I do, I will feel the same way. It's great. It's fine. It's not life-changing. I would have been much more disappointed if you said no to The Great Gatsby, but you didn't. I just burped. Listener, I need to go. Thank you so much for listening. You're the bomb. We do this podcast every week. If you want to have us watch a email and talk about it, please send us your requests. We may get to them someday. Please comment, like, subscribe, share, email us at moviestowatchbeforeyouDie@gmail.com. You can send us a voice note at anchor.fm/movies to watch. You can find us on Instagram. And Dylan, what else?
Just thanks for listening. You can find us in all your major podcast places if you want to find us somewhere else. And yeah, share this with somebody else. Let's get so many views now. If everybody just shares this with 2 other people, eventually every person in the world will have heard it.
If everybody Venmos me $1, eventually I will not be poor anymore.
Oh, we could retire. Oh, that sounds nice.
Yeah, it does sound nice. Thank you all so much for listening, and we will catch you next week.
Thanks for listening.
Although I cried at the end of The Dirty Dozen.
Well, who didn't?
Because Jim Brown was throwing these hand grenades down these air shafts, and Richard Jekyll and Lee Marvin were sitting on top of this armored personnel carrier. They're dressed up like Nazis. And Trini Lopez. He busted his neck when they were parachuting down behind the Nazi lines. Stop it. Richard Jekyll, at the beginning, he had on his shiny helmet because he was EMP.
Please, no more. Oh, God, I love that movie.